It is still morning. All right. Good morning, everyone. Again. Hello again. Hello, hello. So if we can have everyone, okay, everyone's pretty much in their seat. All right. So we're going to move forward. Hopefully you guys got a chance to stretch and get some coffee, water, network a little bit more. So you guys are in for a treat. I'm very excited to introduce, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I will at least let you tell you guys who we have here with us today. So we have Jonathan B. Simon from JP Morgan. He's the Executive Director, Head of Student Strategy and Advancing Black Leaders. So Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you so much. So everybody's like really setting me up to knock the ball out of the park. I hope I can deliver. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And now that you've gotten the religion of Walter Booker this morning, hopefully we can have a little fun and relax a bit and talk a little bit about the assessment process. My mic, you can turn it on, even though you guys can probably hear me, right? How's that? Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. As it was just said, I'm Jonathan Simon. I'm the Executive Director, run Student Strategy for Advancing Black Leaders at JP Morgan Chase. Let me tell you a little bit about what that is. But before I do, kind of to a couple things that Walter said. I've always believed in paying it forward, right? It's really all about kind of helping others and helping pave the way, because so many people have helped pave the way for me to be where I am. And for most of my career, I've actually spent it in banking as a banker. When I was at Citigroup, I joined JP Morgan 14 months ago. I was at Citigroup for 12 years. And over the course of those 12 years, I had an opportunity to run diversity and inclusion for our institutional business, which are the traditional Wall Street businesses, investment banking, capital markets, private banking. Really got a chance to kind of connect my business knowledge, my passion for human capital, my passion for diversity, and kind of run a strategic effort for the firm. Went back to the business and, was doing fine, but I still had this internal passion for diversity and wanted to get back into the game. And went through a series of conversations and ended up at JP Morgan in this seat. And the reason I took the role and the reason I made the jump at the time is because last year, early first quarter of the year in 2017, it was a pivotal moment, kind of as we'll look back 25 years from now and realize how significant this moment is that we're in, where I saw an opportunity for us to for me to do something transformative to help not only the pipeline of Black and brown talent, but to do it in a firm where the CEO is unequivocally and unapologetically intentional about recruiting more Black and brown people, right? And for a CEO of a major institution like a JP Morgan Chase to be unequivocal about his commitment to supporting Black talent to the degree where he would start a team like we've done with many other initiatives at JP Morgan Chase, where we've got a problem we want to solve, we put a team around it, and we say, go fix it. This is a similar thing we've done with Black talent, where it wasn't a problem that we needed to fix, but he felt we could do much better than we were doing, right? Big firm, lots of opportunities, we can do more. And so that's what our team does every day. We focus on how to do more with organizations like SEO, which is a 30-year partnership we just celebrated at the beginning of the summer with a reception with all the SEO Wall Street interns, 30-year commitment to this organization to help kind of create a more fluid pipeline of Black and brown talent into JP Morgan Chase. We're proud to say this summer, I think we have in the neighborhood of 41, 42 interns at JP Morgan Chase across all of our lines of business. So you are all sitting in sacred space by being in this organization. And you should definitely take every opportunity that you have. So having a Walter Booker come up here and say, ask me questions, take advantage of that. To be in this room and to be able to absorb and get the exposure that you're getting is a phenomenal opportunity. And it's going to pay off in spades over the course of your career if you continue to dig in. But I want to congratulate all of you for, first of all, investing in yourselves and even creating the space for you to be here. So you've done that, you've taken that initiative and that drive will continue to kind of excel and propel you through the rest of your career. So we're gonna do a few things this morning. We're gonna talk about just the interview process kind of broadly. And we're going to talk specifically, I've been tasked by Mindy and the team to talk specifically about virtual interviews. How many of you have done interviewing, just basic, traditional, face-to-face? Oh, wow, 100%. All right. How many of you have done a virtual? You have a question, or you still you're just enthusiastic? Okay. So how many of you have done a virtual interview, like a hire view? Okay. So what we thought in conversations with our SEO partners is that it might be helpful to just have a conversation about virtual interviews, because for many people, they're still very new. And even if you've already done them, you may not be completely comfortable with them. How many of you are comfortable with virtual interviewing? Awesome. Okay, so some of you that are comfortable, I may ask you to stand up and tell me how you got comfortable, right? Because it's something that I think you kind of have to work at, just like interviewing in general. I think in order to be an effective interviewer, you have to work at it. You got to practice. And so we're going to talk about how to do that, how to get more comfortable, because in our industry and perhaps others, it's becoming a much more common practice. Anyone have a sense of why we do virtual interviews? Yes, sir. Can stand. This is going to be, I don't know if this is an SEO rule, but this is a rule in life. If you're at a conference or you're in a big room with a group of people, you ever notice, like in the White House press room, when they call on the stand up and they say so-and-so from CNN, like you got to always introduce yourself, right? So everybody in the room can just have a point of reference, like, oh, that was, Miguel that asked that question, or that was Susan, or whatever. So always stand, grab the mic if you have one, introduce yourself, say your name, where you're from. Say your name? Zachary?
Yeah, I'm Zach Phillip.
Okay.
I'm studying at University, and I think there's more of a shift to, hiring and other interviews like that, because it allows you to remove bias and to engage with more talent and with less resources.
Mm-hmm. Any other, great response. Any other? Yes. Mm-hmm. That's great. Absolutely. Both of those are correct. A lot of it has to do with volume, right? And scalability, right? Our ability as a firm, because we're one of those firms that doesn't really have like school bias. Like we pride ourselves on really being holistic about looking at talent from any school, right? We just want good people, smart people who want to work hard, who want to contribute to the organization, and who have some enthusiasm and a personality. And you can find that at any university. So we're not, not saying that everybody at our firm is perfect, because they're not. We've got some school snobs, right? We've got some businesses that are a little bit more snobbish about schools, but on the whole, we try to really make sure we're seeing talent from across the full diaspora of schools. And so the scalability of a HireView, and HireView is just one tool. There are many out there. That's the one we happen to use. But it gives you that ability to see a lot of candidates. We used it recently in our sophomore program, and got a shout out to Fabrice here, who was in our sophomore development program recently in Chicago. And can I tell him the good news? Fabrice is going to come work for us next summer. But we use that HireView tool as a part of that process to kind of just, engage with students and be able to do it in a more efficient manner, geographically. And obviously, we do get more diversity because of that, because it's a fairly easy way to connect. So I'm going to start off with a quick video. This is a HireView video that they created just to talk about kind of the process. So let's cue the video and see what HireView has to say about how to conduct a virtual interview.
Hi, and welcome to an introduction of HireView. I'm Matt, and I'm here to give you a few pointers today. First of all, we do realize that a video interview may not be the most comfortable thing for some of you. But using video interviews as part of our application process has allowed us to consider a lot more applicants for each position. Next, you'll need a laptop or a desktop with a camera. We know that it can be difficult to act like yourself in front of the camera, so don't worry, we're not evaluating your stage presence, although a little personality can go a long way.
I work real hard and I'm smart too.
Maybe I should emphasize, a little personality goes a long way. But make yourself at home, get comfortable, shouldn't be too hard because most likely you're at home already. And please don't feel like you have to make eye contact with the camera the entire time. I know that you're supposed to make eye contact with your interviewer, but in this case, not making eye contact with the webcam, it just makes things a little weird. Feel free to let your eyeballs breathe and check your notes if you need to. Also, make sure you go through the practice questions ahead of time so that you can know what the process will feel like. If you do that, you'll know that you only have 30 seconds to review the question before your camera starts recording. Then you have 3 minutes to answer. But don't feel like you have to use all 3 minutes. Just move on to the next question when you're done. So I know it's a video interview, but just treat it like a regular interview and find a quiet place that's free of distractions.
I'm doing an interview.
Dress the part. For bamboo, that means not too formal, but not too cash. You can leave the tie in the closet, but don't leave everything in the closet. And last but not least, have some fun with it. Like I said, a little personality goes a long way.
All right, so I've got, okay, that was actually funny. Can you show him that last part? It's hilarious.
I mean, wow. That is such a good, I mean, oh my gosh, it's a great question.
So thank you. And I've seen a lot of those horror stories. Before we get into the slides, I'll share some horror stories. So I have actually seen HireVue videos where the individual, in this case, was a male student in his dorm room with a picture of Rihanna on the wall in like some scantily clad bathing suit with like water dripping off of her or something. Like it was, that caught my attention, and I was actually not paying attention to him while he was talking. Like there was one other young man who had like actually a nude model on his wall, his roommate's wall behind him. People coming in right from working out and they're sweating and they got you could tell like they just finished working out, and then they come in and they're gonna do the HireVue video. Like you really have to think about, and we'll talk about this in a minute as they talked about briefly, the environment that you're in, your presentation, how you're presenting yourself, your physical appearance, all of that plays into it, right? Because you do have 30 seconds, the question pops up, and then you have 3 minutes to respond. You can pause and get your thoughts together and maybe jot down some notes, and we'll talk about some tips and tricks. But, your eye contact, not totally like staring into the screen for the entire time that you're taking the question. It's really conversational, so you want to appear relaxed while at the same time giving off confidence, right? So let's see here. All right, so we'll skip the agenda. So general recruitment process, and it will vary by firm, but I always say with any organization that you're going to interview for, and this may be stating the obvious, but I think it's worth repeating, you've got to do your research. And I'm going to anchor down on this one for a little bit because I think it's so important. How many of you think you want to go into investment banking? Okay. I bet in 3 months from now, that number will change. Why? Because you'll be more educated. You'll learn more. And what I commonly find on college campuses, and as I talk to students, everybody starts out saying they want to be an investment banker, right? I don't know why, because I don't know why. Can anybody tell me why? Why do you want to be an investment banker?
I'm Lucas. I'm a writing engineer at Brandeis University.
Okay.
Me personally, I'm not interested in investment banking, but I think the reason why a lot of people want to go into investment banking is that in the culture we're in today, we're so
Amen, brother. That's like, you nailed it. Like this, and I'm going to, and this, where Walter ended, I want to pick up the baton. I have an analogy that I always create, that I always use, and I tell students, right? Your life is a canvas, like a piece of, like you're going to create a work of art, right? When you started out and you were a little baby, all of your life, from the time you were a baby until the time you walked across that high school stage to go to college, was very orchestrated and conducted by some adult or multiple adults, right? Telling you where you should go, what you should do, how you should do it, don't do this, don't do that, right? Now you find yourself in college, and a lot of that you're driving, you're figuring out, should I apply to SEO? But mom and dad may still, or grandma or auntie may still play a role, but now you're starting to conduct this orchestra a little bit by yourself. Now, when you graduate from college and you step into this real world thing, there's this canvas that you're going to have when you walk across that stage at graduation. You know, not real, like euphemistically, right? And all along the way, you've picked up paints, you've picked up brushes, and you're going to step across that stage. You've got this canvas and you got the paint, you got the brushes. It's your turn now to paint that canvas. And it's totally up to you in terms of what that canvas looks like. Nobody's telling you it has to be a certain way. And I know people that make $3 million a year and they're miserable. You probably say, how could you be miserable and make $3 million a year, right? But have you ever heard of a rock star or an actor who's depressed, who has anxiety, got everybody in the world loves them, they got more money than they can ever spend, and their personal lives are a wreck, right? So to his point, as you paint your canvas, it should be centered around your passion, your interest, because at the end of the day, no matter how much money you make, no matter how successful you become, that doesn't directly correlate to happiness. And the life that you live on this earth, to the point that Walter made before he exited the stage, is about how you touch people along the way. Because when they get up and talk about you one day, and somebody's up here and you're laying down there in that wooden box, and they're talking about you, nobody's going to talk about how much money you made. Nobody's going to talk about how many cars, how many vacation homes, how many nice tailored suits you had. They're going to talk about how you treated people along the way, how you touched their lives while you were here. And that's what it's all about. So philosophically, as you think about career, think about that canvas and think about being in this journey with SEO to help you find what color paint do I need to have in my palette? What brushes do I need to have so I can paint the right painting? That when your day is done on this earth, people can look at that painting and say, wow, right? What a great life this person painted. So back to the point around thinking about why you want to be in X or Y, have some grounding in why you want to be in investment banking or in capital markets or in treasury services or in accounting or in finance, which is to the first point. You've got to do your research, because for all those people that raised their hand who said they want to be an investment banker, and say you're at a cocktail party, you're an SEO event, and somebody asks you that question, and it's a person that can actually hire you, I want you to be ready with a response as to why I want to be an investment banker. And it's not just because I want to cover clients, because you know what? Every business at JP Chase or any other financial institution, every business covers clients, right? Whether you're in the consumer bank serving consumer clients, whether you're in the commercial bank covering mid-sized clients, whether you're in risk management and you're looking at a portfolio and you're managing risk for a client, all the businesses touch clients. So to say, well, I want to be in a client-facing business, or I want to talk to clients, or I want to deal with clients, well, that's just not enough. Like, you've got to really be able to peel that onion back to say, why is it that I want to do whatever it is? And we can talk a little bit more about that in Q&A, but you really have to have a firm grounding as to why. Just because everybody else on campus is saying they want to be an investment banker is not reason enough, right? Because the masses are all going that way. Because the reality is, everybody can't be an investment banker. We know that, right? Everybody doesn't want to do that. Everybody can't do that. and it's not designed for everybody to do it. So you've got to think about and use this exploration in SEO to help you better tune what it is you want to do and why. So do your research as you're interviewing for a company, for a particular program, because that's one of the questions we ask. I mean, in the sophomore program, right, Fabrice, one of the questions was, why are you interested in JP Morgan Chase? Well, if you haven't read our letter to shareholders that's put out by Jamie Dimon, or if you haven't read anything on the firm and you step up to the HireVue interview and that's the first question, you're not going to do too well, right? So being able to do your research about the company, the parts of the organization that you're interested in, so that you can present your best self and have a more articulated view on whatever it is they're asking. Does that make sense? Any questions about that before I go to the next one? Yes, sir. You don't have to introduce yourself again. We know who you are. Sure, yeah.
I guess one question I would have is, when viewing a company's website, what's the most important bit of information that you should probably gain?
Sure, good question. Did everybody hear his question? Okay. Did anybody else have that question and just didn't want to ask it? Like, you got to get in the habit of asking questions. You had the same? Similar? Okay. Because this is safe space, right? Did they tell you guys this is a safe room? Like, everybody in here everybody that's coming up here to talk to you on a Saturday has love for this crowd. You got that, right? So, like, dig in, like, ask questions, okay? So, best place, what I would do if I were you, if there are companies that you're interested in or industries, if there's an industry you're interested in, I would go and figure out who are the top companies in that industry. I would start following them on LinkedIn, right? Because stuff is just going to then start coming to you naturally. You're just going to get articles and everything about that company coming into your LinkedIn feed. How many of you have LinkedIn profiles? Awesome. Does anybody doesn't have one? So everybody in this room has a LinkedIn profile. How many people in this room are proud of their LinkedIn profile? Okay. So if you're not proud of your LinkedIn profile, you need to find somebody in this room who is. Proud people of their LinkedIn profile, raise your hand again. All right, those people who didn't raise their hand, did you see the people who did raise their hand? Get with them and say, what makes you proud about your LinkedIn profile? Because I want to be proud too. Because your LinkedIn profile is like your resume digitally to the world. Do you want to have a resume that you're not proud of? No, right? So your LinkedIn profile needs to have the same representation of you that your resume does. So get that right. Like, get with the people that feel proud and let's make that happen, okay? So go on to LinkedIn, follow the companies that you're interested in. How many of you get the morning brew? Okay. How many people don't know what morning brew is? All right. People who don't know who it is, get with the people who do and tell them how to get it done. Like, you got to share information. Morning brew is an email that comes out every day that tells you what's going on in the world of business. So your company that you're interested in might pop up in that morning brew. So if you have a routine that you get the morning brew and you read the morning brew, you'll catch, oh, wow, here's an article on my favorite company in the morning brew. It's not going to naturally send you articles, but anything of significance that might happen relative to your company, it'll pop up in the morning brew. All right. I would, if you're going into an interview or you're preparing for something with a company, a discussion with a company, or you're going to a reception, I would always go to the homepage and look at their current news. So recent news. You could look at the 10K. Who knows what a 10K is? Okay. 10K is the annual report of the company. It comes out once a year. It's everything that just happened in the past fiscal year for that company. It's required for all public companies to have an annual report or a 10K. Good place to start. It's fairly dense, a lot of information. But it's good to read it if you're going in to really interview for a company, because it talks about the lines of business, the divisions. Anytime a company releases their quarterly earnings, it's always good to go in and look at the last quarterly earnings. They do a summary. They post that on their website as well. So those are some good ideas in terms of places that you can go to get more research and look up information on your companies. You can also go into Yahoo Finance and set up a tickler system of every public company that you're interested in. And everything about those companies will just naturally feed into your Yahoo Finance. That's just one of them. I'm sure Google has the same thing. But those are just a few examples. Okay. Any other questions about research? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a classics major at Lily Cross. I kind of had trouble researching about like, the culture of different companies.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the websites say the same thing.
Absolutely.
How do you find out something that's unique?
So that's a great question. Did everybody hear her question? Culture. And I would say the most important thing about this process and the most important differentiator between companies is culture, right? A bank is a bank is a bank. We all do the same thing for the same kind of companies. Many of us have the same clients, but the differentiator is culture. And it's very hard to ascertain culture on a website. Why? Because we hire big marketing firms, or we've got really smart people in marketing, and they all kind of try to create culture online to make you feel like, wow, this is such a great culture. What I would say around culture is as you get articles about companies, you'll see what's important to that company, right? So if you sign up and you start seeing things about a company X, and there's nothing that comes up about the community and how they're giving back, or what they're doing in neighborhoods of color, or if they have a scholarship fund, or they're partnered with SEO. If you don't see those things coming up in a company's news feed, kind of tells you something about their culture, right? I would say the best way to learn about culture is meet some of the people along the way, along your journey. When you're interacting with companies, get to know some of the people. That'll be a reflection of the culture. How engaging they are, how transparent they are, how authentic they are. Authenticity is like one of the most important things at our firm, like being genuine, authentic, being yourself, and just coming and contributing, right? And so some firms have a real problem with authenticity. You can tell that. You can spot it a mile away, right? So as you get to meet the people, I think that's the best way you're going to really be able to peel that back. But that has to be, or should be, paramount in your decision making, because you're black and brown and you're showing up in spaces where even in 2018, you're going to look around. It's like, man, not a lot of people look like me in a lot of different organizations. That's the case still. And so the culture, in terms of how they embrace you and make you feel that you can be successful, is a differentiator. We know you're smart. You're here. You're doing well, but it's when you step into those spaces, that culture is what's going to take you through those moments when you feel like you're on an island by yourself. Does that make sense? Okay. Any more questions? Oh, wow, you guys love this research, and we're never going to get to the real deal. Come on, let's go. Quick.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maurice August. I'm a rising sophomore at Lehman College. And my question is, so, like, how do you figure out if a firm can fit your personality type? So, like, just to clarify, I know that different firms, they may, differ in terms of personality type, even though it's inside of investment banking. But, how do you know that specific firm can fit within your personality type? This is similar to culture, but, how are you able to ascertain that?
Okay, great question. So one of the skills that you will have to master is the ability to flex, right? You're going to always have to flex your style. And you're going to always have to flex your personality. Now, the degree to which you decide to stretch is totally on you, right? So what I mean by that is, you're going to step into, and I look at my own experience. I grew up in Middle Georgia, a single parent household. I owned a horse when I was a kid. I can milk a cow like nobody's business. I used to fish. I knew nothing about Wall Street. I knew nothing about tailored suits. I knew nothing about eating sushi. And remember the first aha moment I had, and we do this with our interns. We bring in our black and brown interns before the internship starts, and we give them these real conversation moments around what to expect. I was in conversation in my first internship, and people were talking, and this was in the 80s, so early 90s, so I'm dating myself. People were talking about sushi. And I was like, what the hell is, what's sushi? Well, sorry, I'm not supposed to curse. Sorry, Taylor. What's sushi, right? Because in Georgia, we fry fish, okay? We don't eat it raw. If my grandmother even thought in her grave that I'm somewhere in New York City right now eating raw fish, she would probably turn over in her grave, okay? Like, sushi, what's sushi? Okay. Like, and this is what we do. We eat like fish that's raw on top of rice, wrapped in seaweed. That's a thing. Okay, all right, I can get with that, right? Because where I'm from, that's not something we do. We take the fish, we season it, we put a little cornmeal on it, we drop it in some hot grease, and 2-3 minutes later, you got a nice piece of fried fish. That's what we do. That's the extent of it, right? So I had to lean into something that wasn't a part of my personality, wasn't a part of my upbringing. I had to lean into that, flexing, right? So you got to expand. You got to expand yourself and be willing to expand. You're going to always be in those environments. So it's really hard to answer your question. It's hard to really know sometimes, like if it's going to be a personality fit, because your manager is going to change. Groups will change. My prior firm, I was there through the recession where the stock went to $1, right? Everybody's losing their job. You're watching people walk out with boxes, and everybody's frantic about whether they're going to keep their job. And you see feels like the world is collapsing. You can't predict that moment. That was like a black swan moment, right? So there are going to be things in the course of your career that you can't predict. It's not an absolute science, none of this stuff. It's all about exploration. And you're going to step into a job, you're going to step into an internship, and you're going to, you know what, this doesn't really fit me, to your point. I don't really like this. And sometimes knowing that you don't like something is just as good as knowing that you do, right? So being in environments where you say, you know what, this is not the environment that I like. So it's like, okay, check the box. I know next time I'm going to look for environments that are very different than that one. So sometimes the exploration is just as good as, it's just a good way to really figure it out and be in the moment. You had a question and we're going to keep moving.
Hi, my name is Kwesi Kiwe, and I am a rising sophomore at Woodbury College. My question, as far as research goes, is sometimes kind of like peel back and really get to know more deep, as you were saying, people. So the issue I'm kind of having is knowing whether or not asking like the right questions on calls with like investment bankers that are in the industry already, because they say there are no stupid questions or there are no right or wrong ones, but sometimes
That's a loaded statement. You know that, right? That's loaded.
it feels as if there is. So I'm just wondering what's your
Yeah, I think you have to be thoughtful about who you're asking questions to. There's no stupid question, but there are some people that you need to ask stupid questions, and then there's some people you need to ask other kinds of questions. Every question is a good question. It's a great question, but you need to direct the question accordingly, right? So if you're speaking to an MD in the group, asking an MD what the difference between a share repurchase strategy and a dividend buyback, share repurchase versus a dividend, is not the question you want to ask them. Or how do I do a DCF model? What are the components of a discounted cash flow model? That's not an MD question, right? So depending on your audience and the space that you're in, like right now, this is safe space. You can ask me whatever you want. And there's no judgment. There's no critique. I will answer the question. But if you're in a situation where MD, whatever, has taken the time to get on the phone with you, I would make the question much more strategic. I would try to keep it at a high level. But if you're going to get into the weeds, you call the person that goes to your school that works at that firm or somebody from the school team, and you still just you got to use your judgment. Like there's so much information out there right now. There's no reason for any of you to be stepping into a scenario where you can't answer questions and be engaged, because all the information is out there. They post, it's almost like it's unbelievable how much, like in your lap, the internet has created for you as it relates to the interview process. Like, I shouldn't be turning down anybody going through a process, because all the questions are on the internet. All the answers are on the internet. Everything is out there. Now, you got to go through all that information and figure out what you're going to use and what's of value and what's not, because there's a lot of crap out there. But you've got so much information at your disposal. You should think through, am I leveraging all of my resources before I get on the phone and ask Mr. Simon a question about whatever, and you could have answered that yourself. Like, why are you asking me that? That's on the internet. Like, don't ask me, a question that you can just Google it and it's right there. Like, so be resourceful and be thoughtful about what questions you ask to whom and when. Okay, we're going to keep it moving, then we'll come back at the end. So online application, make sure your resume's tight. In this deck, it's called CV, your curriculum vitae. but it's the same as a resume. Got your stuff in there, fill it out, make sure it's correct. Video line interviewing, we're going to talk about video interviewing, online testing, we'll talk about that. And that usually takes you to your first round. A lot of times with us or in other firms, the video screen will be the first round, like to get you through the process. We can see more people through the video screen, and then we narrow it down and bring those students in for a final round, or what's called sometimes a super day. So making your resume, CV stand out, you guys know all this, but I just put it in just in case. Tell us what drives you and makes you unique. So you should know your resume, hands down, full stop, right? Like, you should know, why did you pick the school you went to? Why did you do X, Y, or Z, right? You should know that off the top of your head. So if I pick anybody in this room and say, tell me about yourself, everybody should have that elevator speech. Do you guys have elevator speeches? How long is your elevator speech? A minute? That's a long elevator speech. How long is your elevator speech? How long is yours? Stand up and give it to me.
My name is Jamie. I taught on the Rise sophomore at Louisville University. Right now, I'm a resident assistant. I'm part of a couple of different organizations on campus. I'm looking for a firm that both aligns with my cultural aspect and values me for who I am and my experiences, and looking to enter the financial services sector.
Awesome. So when you're in an interview, now somebody asks you a question like, tell me about yourself. You're like, well, what do you want to know? Well, I just asked you to tell me about yourself. So you tell me whatever you want to. Can you wake him up? You up? Okay. All right. All right. Because if I went out last night and went to a party with my wife and danced late into the night, and then I got up this morning and got on a bus and came here, I don't want anybody sleeping on me. Okay. All right. That's our deal. Okay. So you got to be able to jump right in. That's your moment to sell yourself. You're going into an interview. You want that opportunity. You got to sell yourself. You got to really, and be able to present that crisp and succinct. Great job. So that's exactly what you have to do. And when they say tell you about, when they tell me about yourself, whatever you want to tell me, that's going to make me interested in you. That's what that's about. That's your creative space to do that. So know your resume inside and out, why you made certain decisions, why you picked the school you picked, what are your strengths, what are your opportunities, all those things you got to know and be able to really pound through that interview, okay? So here's the interview, video interviewing, 3 to 5 skills, give yourself plenty of time. Really ensure that there are no distractions. Remember the nude picture in the background of Rihanna? That's not cool. Dress professionally, right? Be prepared. Come into the interview, video interview, with a thought of, this is about nailing this opportunity. This is about engaging with the person on the other side of the camera. So have some personality as you're doing it, right? Don't have kind of a deadpan stare and you're looking at the screen, nor do you want to have all of the answers to the questions because you've paused it. You've written them out on a notepad to the side and you're looking at the screen, then you look over the notepad, then you look back at the screen, that's so obvious, right? It's just not that complicated. The questions are usually fairly general. You need to be able to store the answer up here, right? Or if you're going to have notes, make them short, crisp, succinct notes, not like a full script like you're reading from a teleprompter, all right? Aware of your lighting, positioning. Make sure you're in a place that's got Wi-Fi. Don't be in a place where it's going to be coming in and out and the camera. Also, if you have tape over the thing that records you, take that off. Sometimes we've had them where it's people have covered it, but you can see that, it's just weird. They're taping it, but they got something over it. No, take the tape off if you've got tape over your video camera so we can actually see you in full color. Look at the camera, not at the screen. You see those crazy post selfies and stuff, and people still don't get that. They're looking at themselves in the phone as opposed to looking at the little small hole that's the actual camera. You guys know what I'm talking about? So that it looks like you're looking at the person who's viewing it instead of looking at yourself. It's just the weirdest thing. It throws people off. And practice, right? You really need to make sure you're practicing. You do that in the mirror. You can record yourself. Go online, pick 3 random questions, and just sit there and record yourself. And then go back and play it and see what it looks like. All right, so these are just interviews, just different kinds of interviews. Let's see here. This has got the motivational, competency, scenario-based, Role specific, and a lot of this is very specific to us. Wanting to know what motivates you, why you applied. Again, back to my question with the sophomore program, we ask you, why are you applying to this program? You should have an answer for that. Well, because, I think really? Well, because I'm interested in financial services. You guys rank #1 in global banking. I've read a lot about Jamie Dimon and blah, blah. You need to, come on, get with it. Do your research. It shows. And all that will come through as you answer those questions. Competency, what competency do you have? So if you say you want to go in, anybody interested in capital markets? Okay, so you're interested in capital markets, and we're at a cocktail party, and you say, oh, yeah, I'm interested in capital markets. I say, oh, great. Was the Dow up or down on Friday? You're like, I don't know. Okay, well, you're interested in capital markets. You don't know if the Dow closed up or down? Why am I going to even talk to you, right? So if you're saying I want to do X or Y, then that lets me know you've got the competency. So hopefully you're studying, you're reading, you're up on what's going on. But if you're interested in being like an audit, I'm not going to ask you where the Dow closed. That's not a competency I'm expecting you to have, right? Okay, scenario based. People will put you in scenarios, hypothetical situations to see your analytical thinking, right? And they can range. If you do consulting interviews or some investment banking interviews, like back in the day when I was interviewing, somebody asked me how many McDonald's there are in the United States. We don't do a lot of that anymore, but back in the old days of Wall Street, there was a lot of that. It's really not for you to get the right answers, to see how you think, right? If you told me 200, really? 200 McDonald's? No, huh? Help me process how many McDonald's you might begin to get to the end. How would you get there? Well, there are 50 states. There's 3-4 major cities in every state. And every major city is probably, 100 McDonald's. Start walking through it. Oh, okay, you can think. But if you're I don't know. That's like the guy in the end of the video. Oh, that was a good question. I don't know. You stumped me. They want to, they want to see how you, you got me. I don't know how many there are. All right, role play, role specific. And that's just specific to the role that you're interested in and having the skills. Competencies, teamwork, analytical thinking, drive for results. For us, these 3 are very, very important. Probably important for a lot of other firms too, but we definitely, those 3 in particular are key competencies that we look for. I'm not going to get into that. Quick interview tips, find the right fit. Check out which programs are right for you, right? This is all around homework and research. Doing your research, finding the right program for you, the right organization, so you can get the experience, so you can kick the tires. Internships are all about you kicking the tires. Knowing that the organization is a right fit for you, and then we're kicking the tires with you to see you're the right fit for us. And fit being, could we see this person working here long term? Do your homework, go the extra mile. Ask us anything. Take advantage of opportunities to be online, in-person opportunities to get your questions answered, and have a great interview. Practice makes perfect. You really have to make sure that, like I said, with your resume, rehearsing the content, making sure you really understand, what's on your resume. And lastly, connecting through social media. There's so much out there when you connect to companies on social media. You can really begin to see what the company's like, what their culture is, learning more about them. The more informed you are, the better you are. So if I'm a college student, I'm probably going to spend less time learning how to do the Kiki challenge, right? And more time preparing. Because nobody's going to have you in an interview say, can you stand up and do the Kiki challenge? I really want to know how to do it. But I do this thing sometimes where I'll ask students, I'll say, who knows what's the name of the current Jay-Z Beyonce tour right now? On the Run. All right. Who's the lead rapper in the Migos? Okay, good. No, that's right, Quavo. Who's the best of the Migos? Offset, exactly. What is, who is Quavo married to? That was a trick question. Okay, good. Offset's married to Cardi B. Who is the head of the Defense Department? Gates, right. Who's the Secretary of State? Who knows if the Dow closed up or down on Friday? Exactly. So the point I want to make is those cultural competency questions, not even really competent, cultural questions, I had resounding responses. I started asking you stuff about like the real world, just stuff that's in the paper every day. Who's the head of secretary? Who's the secretary of state? Who's the head of defense? Where's the Dow? And the response is diminished, right? So we got to know just as much about the Migos as we know about what's going on in the world and trade policy. Because you're wearing an SEO badge. So there's an expectation. You can be both. Back to the talk, I talk about flexibility. I rock the Migos. I listen to the Migos. I listen to, I got a 13-year-old son, 19-year-old daughter. I can listen to the music with them. I can go to a jazz concert. I can buy art. I can eat sushi. I can eat fried chicken in Harlem. You can do all that. That makes you a much more well-rounded person, right? But as you're on this journey, you can't be over-indexed on pop culture and know nothing about the real world. Because what's going to get you the job, what's going to get you the internship is not the Kiki challenge. It's knowing and being able to converse and being able to connect the dots around what's happening in the world and why we should hire you, right? And you've got to convey that, whether that's in person or whether that's virtually. And one of the questions we asked in the sophomore program was, what's the biggest issue today that's affecting financial markets? Like, open question. What do you think is the biggest issue facing us today that will affect the financial markets? I don't expect you to answer. I'm just tossing that out, right? Because we'd be here all day. But that's a question that just is a layup for you to express a world and informed view, right? The answer is not, well, I'm trying to get tickets to the On the Run concert at Madison Square Garden. Like, that's not right. Like, it's like, worldview and thought and how it connects. So those are all important. Let's do a few more questions before they run me off the stage. Yes, sir, and then you in the back.
My name is Noah Myrie, and I'm a rising junior at Northeastern University. Thank you for speaking with us today. And my question is, you spoke about Citibank and how you worked there for multiple years and how you transitioned into JP Morgan recently. And we also talked about culture. Was it a culture shock for you switching to JP Morgan, or was there similarities between the two companies?
Well, because they're recording me, I don't want to. I can answer that question offline. Both are partners of SEO, and I have a lot of obviously respect for both companies. But there are differences in culture. Take me not. There are differences in culture, and I will say that my current culture is very deliberate, intentional, results-oriented, high-performing, and fun. And I'll leave it at that. You want the other side of the coin, I can give it to you offline. Who else? Oh, I'm sorry. He was next, and then you.
Hi, Carlos Gonzalez with Emory University. I have a dual question. First one is, like I applied to a program, whatever, week passes by, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I haven't heard back anything. When is the right time to, call the company or bank and say, hey, I applied, you guys haven't reached out to me yet. Like, what's the correct... the
cadence.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
go ahead. You go your second part. Go ahead.
And the second part is, do you like a Lil Baby, as in the rapper?